But first, let's go to the numbers, Mika, or the numbers that weren't.
Yes, the numbers that weren't, I guess. White House economic advisors now are defending President Trump's firing of the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Trump's move came on Friday, hours after a stunning government report showed hiring had slowed down significantly over the past 3 months, with the U.S. adding just 73,000 new jobs in July. Deep revisions to the previous 2 months now indicate that the job market is considerably worse than previously thought, with the U.S. only adding 19,000 jobs in May, compared to an initial report of 144,000 and only 14,000 in June, after an initial report of 147,000. Trump attacked Erica McIntyre on social media following the report, claiming the numbers are being produced by a Biden administration appointee, and ordered his administration to fire her. A career civil servant, McIntyre was confirmed on a bipartisan basis in 2024 and had been widely respected across party lines for her nonpartisan approach. She responded to her abrupt dismissal on social media, saying it was the honor of her life to serve as BLS commissioner. Speaking to reporters yesterday, Trump continued to air his grievances and said he would announce a new statistician soon.
We'll be announcing a new statistician sometime over the next 3 or 4 days. We had no confidence. I mean, the numbers were ridiculous, what she announced, but that was just one negative number. All of the numbers seem to be great. And so we'll see how that comes out. And if you remember, just before the election, this woman came out with these phenomenal numbers on Biden's economy. Phenomenal numbers. And then right after the election, they announced that those numbers were wrong. And that's what they did the other day. So it's a scam, in my opinion.
You know, actually, Mika, less is more on this issue, because the more he talks about it, the more he just proves how wrong it was to fire this woman. First of all, he just said all the numbers leading up to this report were positive. He always praised her numbers if he's going to blame this on her instead of actually data. It wasn't her. But so, you know, the Wall Street Journal got quotes of all the positive things he had said about the job numbers reports from her before. And also he keeps going back to this line about, oh, they put out a blockbuster report right before the election. No, they didn't. That's just not true. I mean, from the reports I saw, it was actually tepid and weak right before the election. So, again, I know facts don't matter in this case, but again, it seems as far as fluctuations go in jobs, that always happens. That has always happened. It always will happen. As far as the numbers being revised the next month or two. And as the Wall Street Journal wrote last night, the numbers are revised not because of any political bias, and not because of any political bias over the past 2 decades, but because of employers not participating as much, and it taking another month to get more details and pulling it out of the employers, and then they revise it a month later. So again, on all of these points, they just don't hold any water, and we're going to get to why this is so concerning for Americans and their economy in the long run.
So, Director of the National Economic Council and top Trump economic advisor Kevin Hassett defended the president's decision yesterday on Meet the Press, as well as his claim the jobs reports were rigged, but failed to produce any evidence to support that claim.
But just to be very clear, I mean, there are 40 people put these numbers together. Is the president planning to fire all 40 people involved in putting these numbers together?
We're going to try to get the numbers so that they're transparent and reliable.
President Trump himself was happy to accept the jobs numbers issued under McIntyre's leadership when the numbers were good. Take a listen to what he said in the past.
The numbers were much better, as you know, than projected by the media.
In 3 months, we have created 350,000 jobs. Think of that.
A lot of jobs are being created. That's what
happened this morning. We saw the jobs.
So is the president prepared to fire anyone who reports data that he disagrees with?
No, absolutely not. The president wants his own people there so that when we see the numbers, they're more transparent and more reliable. And if there are big changes and big revisions, we expect more big revisions for the jobs data in September, for example, then we want to know why. We want people to explain it to us.
Were the numbers wrong? Do you have any hard evidence that you can present to the American public that these numbers, these revisions that were reported, and there were plenty of revisions under former President Biden, including right before the election, do you have any hard evidence that these numbers were wrong?
Yeah, there is very hard evidence that we're looking at the biggest revision since 1968.
Are you going to present
if
that
you
evidence?
look at the number itself, it is the evidence.
But just saying it's an outlier is not evidence, Mr. Hassett.
It's a historically important outlier. It's something that's unprecedented.
Still
so unprecedented
it's still
that
not
I've been looking at
evidence,
it
though.
for 40 years, and I'm like, it must be a typo.
So, as Joe mentioned, the Wall Street Journal editorial board has a new piece out entitled The Bureau of Labor Denial. And it describes the burden of Trump's advisors who have had to support the president's claim the numbers were rigged. And it reads in part, quote, start with the labor secretary who told Bloomberg TV early on Friday, that even though the jobs data was revised downward for May and June, we've seen positive job growth. Okay, sometimes in politics you have to look at a rotten apple and call it merely overripe. But then Mr. Trump fired the BLS director, who reports to the labor secretary. She snapped to attention, I agree wholeheartedly with @POTUS that our jobs numbers must be fair, accurate, and never manipulated for political purposes, she tweeted. So were the jobs data that were positive in the morning rigged by the afternoon? As Wall Street Journal editorial board member Alyssa Finley writes nearby, the BLS job revisions are best explained by a decline in business response rates, not political bias. The reality of slowing job growth is clear to anyone paying attention, no matter the official statistics. Mr. Trump's data denial is one more reason fewer Americans will trust the government. So, Joe, it doesn't seem like the Wall Street Journal is falling for this, if it is so much as the president has fired this person in retribution.
Seriously, anybody that's followed the news or followed economics for more than 15 minutes isn't buying any of this. By the way, I'm sorry for talking. I thought my mic was cut. I was talking to Alex about where we're going to move the questions next. That's the bad news. The good news is, obviously, since you heard me, TJ's back. TJ, it's great to have you back in the director's chair again.
Thank you.
The man who,
good old TJ. Blame him.
No, that was my fault. That was all my fault. I apologize. So, Jonathan Lemire, this is one of these moments. I will say the second term. People ask, what's the difference between the second term and the first term inside the White House? Second term, as you know, and other people that work day in and day out with people that are working in the Trump White House this time, you can get off the record, you can sit, you can talk to them, well, this doesn't make sense. He's stretching this here. Should the DOD Secretary, Secretary of Defense really does? And you can, you get straight answers often back and forth and have a really good, meaningful discussion and trying to figure out, what in the world's going on. For me, and I'm curious about you, this was an exception to that rule. Everybody put on their Baghdad Bob hat this weekend because there just was no justification for it. I was surprised that I didn't even get the sort of quiet eye rolling from inside the White House. They all, I guess they understood. We're going to follow the Baghdad Bob line, and they all did it this weekend. What did your reporting find?
Yeah, similar experiences here. Those in the White House, those close to the president, in lockstep, asserting without evidence that there was bias in these job numbers and that President Trump simply was justified in doing what he did. None of that is true. This is a bad one. This is a bad one. And the historical. This is a bad one. Governments and economies and businesses can only make decisions based on hard data, on statistics. This calls into question, so much of what Washington produces now. If you're a career bureaucrat, if you're a government official, how can you now go about doing your job in an honest way without fear of being fired? Do you now comport yourself in a way to curry favor with the president by giving numbers that he wants? There are a lot of historical parallels, and we'll get to them this morning here. This is echoes of Soviet Union. This is echoes of Argentina, before economies collapsed. You're not, as our friend Peter Baker, who we'll talk to later in the show, wrote in a really good piece this weekend, in Washington, you're entitled to your own opinions. You're not entitled to your own facts. And right now, President Trump is insisting he's entitled to his own facts. And this is one that I think we're going to have a hard-pressed to have anyone mount a credible defense for what was a very dangerous move. It also sets up worrisome precedents.